BICC, in close partnership with the Conventional Weapons Control Branch, OR10, of the German Federal Foreign Office, provides embedded long-term advice to regional and sub-regional organizations, as well as national entities focused on weapons and ammunition control. We're privileged to work in close partnership with regional organizations, including REXA, ECOWAS, and the African Union, maintaining a long-term embedded advisory presence in Addis Ababa, Nairobi, and Abuja. Today, I'm very honored to speak on behalf of REXA, highlighting the excellent work that has been done on arms marking, record keeping, destruction of illicit or unserviceable weapons, and unstable munitions within its 15 member states in East Africa, the Great Lakes, and the Horn since its inception in 1994. In addition to providing member states with strategic guidance and planning support, REXA has also provided containerized armories along key forward operating bases located in sensitive border locations where stockpiles are prone to greater risk of attack or diversion. Within the REXA region, BICC and REXA cooperate to support cross-border arms control initiatives in 5 priority states, including Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, and South Sudan. BICC and the German Federal Foreign Office's engagement and advisory services stem from an identified need to provide focused, long-term sustainable advice while recognizing the value of strengthening a regional cooperation approach and the strength of regional organizations to cross-border arms and ammunition control. This then is also the perfect segue to the question of why a regional cooperation approach is valuable, highlighting the critical supporting role that regional organizations such as REXA could play in operationalizing the tracing of illicit weapons and ammunition and countering diversion at the national level. Ambassador Kimani has already alluded to the issue of porous borders in his opening remarks, highlighting the transnational nature of the threat of illicit weapons and ammunition flows. There is consensus, therefore, that no single state can effectively address this threat alone. A regional cooperation approach built on trust and transparency, bringing together multiple actors through multi-year, long-term partnerships and facilitating communication and coordination across borders is therefore essential for effective cross-border arms control. Regional organizations such as REXA aim to enhance regional security and stability, recognizing the role of armed violence and conflict as spoilers that prevent the member states from achieving development targets as outlined in the 2030 Agenda, and as Ambassador Marjolaine mentioned at the beginning of this session, the targets for SDG 16.4. In order to strengthen national ownership and coordination, regional organizations, including REXA and ECOWAS, function through an established network of NFBs, national commissions, and designated points of contact, whose role is to coordinate all arms and ammunition control activities in the country, including tracing. As we know from the reading of the ITI, points of contact are a major asset, especially when they're functional and do not see regional organizations as external actors, but trusted allies. As the POA draft document clearly highlights, sub-regional and regional organizations across the world play a vital role in bridging global commitments and national implementation while promoting regional cooperation and assistance, as well as developing good practice tailored to specific regional realities. So what does this mean in terms of practical arms control and in terms of operationalizing tracing? Regional organizations and national focal points undertake several practical arms control initiatives that enable tracing by laying the groundwork or building the preconditions to improve the traceability of illicit weapons and ammunition. These could include destruction, safe storage, as well as specific and dedicated training and capacity building initiatives. As James mentioned, marking and record keeping form the core of a state's arms control architecture and are a main pillar of the ITI and POA. What's important to understand is that marking, record keeping, and tracing are interdependent and intrinsically linked. Therefore, all efforts to enhance the effectiveness require an integrated approach. To place this in context, REXA recognizes that weapons, ammunition, and related material of interest must be marked appropriately and systematically to permit the unique identification. Haley has already provided several real-world examples of how this is important while tracing weapons in the field. Records related to manufacturing, trade, and destruction of marked weapons, ammunition, and related material need to be comprehensive, accurate, searchable, and accessible. To enable tracing, states and manufacturers and companies need to cooperate by promptly sharing information in response to trace requests issued by competent authorities. Therefore, systematic marking, accurate record-keeping practices, and trustful information sharing are essential preconditions to enable the tracing of weapons and ammunition, including mapping supply chains and identifying points of diversion. So how does this work in practice? As Ambassador Kamani referred to secondary marks in his opening, in the opening remarks, secondary marks, I'd like to pause for a second and actually examine the REXA protocol for marking. The REXA weapons marking protocol is fairly clear and begins with a star signifying the REXA region, followed by the ISO code of the country, KE for Kenya or SO for Somalia, as well as a unique identifier linked to a specific branch of the security forces. This is followed by a unique identifying number, but what I'd like to draw your attention to today is the QR code that is seen at the end of this mark. This is an extremely useful way of containing or compressing large amounts of relevant information in a small and highly concealable mark that can be read by a simple, relatively cheap smartphone camera scanner. The advantage of such a small mark is that it can be placed under the spring cover or on the receiver as an additional mark without attracting much attention. However, QR codes are not currently being used by most states while marking their weapons, even though this represents a low-cost technology that has significant potential for enhancing weapons marking practices. I'm sure this will be discussed further in the next agenda topic on technology, so let me move swiftly forward to marking and record keeping in practice. We have observed significant challenges to accomplishing this, even though, as Ambassador Kamani pointed out, we have seen significant weapons stockpiles being marked, with Kenya achieving 98% of marking of regular state-owned weapons stockpiles. Challenges including geographical distance, spare parts and maintenance, lack of trained personnel, as well as lack of funds for operational costs related to marking programs, including for fuel or vehicles or transport, hinder marking and record keeping programs. In addition, political insecurity or lack of access also to remote areas also hinder marking and record keeping in practice. What I'd like to focus on here are a few additional challenges that REXA recognizes. As Haley mentioned, inaccurate identification of small arms and light weapons, as well as the best practice of maintaining records indefinitely, need to be followed by member states. The lack of marking of weapons at appropriate points in their life cycle is also recognized as the main challenge by REXA. REXA encourages member states to mark weapons on import, as well as prior to transfer and even prior to destruction. There is, as James pointed out, there are limitations in information sharing and coordination between national and international stakeholders, and this can only be done in an atmosphere of trust and long-term partnerships. Finally, in terms of national points of contact, we've also observed limited capacities as well as frequent changes within the Office of National Focal Points, and the lack of comprehensive reporting from these offices have further limited the impact of operationalizing the ITI in practice. Two additional points that REXA would like to flag are the presence of craft and artisanal weapons without a manufacturer mark that remain an issue in REXA member states. And secondly, an increase in the recovery of illicit small arms and light weapons where their markings have been systematically and deliberately removed. In the interest of time, I'd like to highlight just two practical ways of moving forward. I think it's extremely important to engage on multiple levels. At the high level, political support and buy-in, including an awareness of the value and processes of WAM and tracing as a counter-diversion tool, will be critical in ensuring tracing initiatives are supported and facilitated at the technical or operational level. High-level engagement with key decision makers within the military and political hierarchies is critical, and ensuring language relevant to tracing is included in national legislation, as well as strategic planning processes, such as national arms control plans, will help tracing and practical arms control be operationalized in practice. Further, successful cross-border cooperation and multi-country trainings on WAM-related issues has the potential to serve as a regional confidence-building mechanism. In this respect, dedicated training and modules on accurate arms and ammunition identification and management to address the issues of misidentification and inaccurate record keeping should be prioritized.